want to talk about the races this year. I have to write about this, and I'm on these talk radio programs, and people ask your opinion, and so you gotta get out there and tell them what you think. I think the Republicans will do very, very well in the House of Representatives. People look at the generic ballot, which is where people are asked, would you prefer Republicans to control the Congress or the Democrats to control the Congress? This is not asking them to vote on the congressional race in their district. This is which party they would prefer to have essentially a majority in the Congress. Republicans have maintained a consistent advantage throughout the cycle, and it's right now about 7%. And that 7% includes some real cockamamie polls by groups like Newsweek, which show the Democrats with a 3% margin among likely voters. If you sample 60% Democrats, you will get results like that. But that's unlikely to be the distribution come November 2nd. 7% advantages in the generic ballot translate into pretty sizable gains for the party that has the advantage. Generally, parties that have 6–7% advantages win a majority, and generally they win more than a majority. Right now, the people who are looking at this race by race and looking at the polls in those races where there are polls, looking at the amount of money that candidates have to spend coming down the stretch, looking at the trends in individual states, all of the surveys are suggesting somewhere between 45 and 60 is the range where the Republicans will have a net gain in the House. Republicans need 39 seats to take control. Now, if the projected range is between 45 and 60, and the midpoint of that is, say, around 52, there is still a chance the Democrats will retain control. The reason is a lot of the races are very, very close. And unlike Senate and gubernatorial races, the House races typically have at most one poll a month. Sometimes that poll is by a partisan organization, so you have to throw in some error factor for bias in the poll. It's much more difficult to gauge individual races, which is why a lot of people are going by this generic ballot and saying that'll be enough. But where polls have come out, they have verified that generic ballot difference. So the website I go to first thing every morning, realclearpolitics.com, moves races from one party to another when they believe that the lead for one candidate essentially is now outside the margin of error. As of this morning, the Real Clear Politics survey has Republicans ahead in 222 races, Democrats in 177, and 36 toss-ups. If the toss-ups were split 18-18, Republicans would wind up with 240 seats, a gain of 61. That's on the outside range of the range I gave you before. There's a guy in the New York Times, a guy named Nate Silver, about a website, 538.com, who's basically he was a baseball numbers guy for many years. He came up with, what is it, Precoda, what's the name of it? Precoda? It's a system to tell you what the worth of individual players was, and he predicted the number of wins for every team in the season. I mean, he's a real bright guy, University of Chicago, math wizard. And he started coming up with forecasts of the presidential primaries in 2008. He turned out to be spot on in a couple races. Got a website, soon he had millions of people going to it every day. And now the New York Times has bought his site, and he's coming up every day now with predictions for the Senate, the governor's races in the House. And his House forecast just jumped yesterday to 51 seats. He had been in the mid-40s for most of the last 2 weeks. So he's seeing fairly significant changes. He says 80% chance Republicans win the House. Last week, beginning of the week, it was in the low 70s. So every survey that's showing movement is showing movement towards the Republicans. Yeah, there are a couple races that are moving towards the Democrats, but many, many more are moving towards the Republicans. Here in Georgia, most of the surveys have 3 seats that are considered in play. One of them is considered likely Democrat, which is Georgia 12, the seat of Baehr, and 2 others are considered toss-ups, Georgia 2 and Georgia 8. One is Bishop's seat, one is Marshall's seat. And Reed told me this, that I should chalk those up when I make my final forecast the next week as in the Republican column, because she's seen real numbers rather than this one survey that's been reported publicly, which would be nice to hear, because a couple of those, especially in Jim Marshall, and I think it's Jim Marshall in Georgia 8, has managed to hang on a couple times, very close races. In Illinois, which is a state that went for Obama by 25%, the Republicans have, at this point, a lead in the race for senator, a lead in the race for governor, and a lead in 3 Democratic-held House seats. And they're running even in the seat that Mark Kirk, who's running for senator, formerly held in Congress. That's a very, very close race. And they're even making a race competitive that no one in their right mind would have thought competitive at the beginning of the year, which is Illinois 9, where Joel Pollak is running against Jan Schakowsky, probably the most left-wing member of the U.S. Congress district that's rated Democrat at +20. There's no reason a Republican should even be written about this late stage in a race. And his own polls show him down 10, 15 points. Unlikely he's going to win, but to make a race that competitive in that kind of district, again, gives you some idea of what this cycle is going to look like. The Senate is a different story. There, pretty much both parties know which races really are very, very close at this point. So unlike 435 House seats where there may be 100 seats in play and 50 of them that are really within 5 points or less, in the Senate, everybody knows the 4 or 5 seats that could swing either way. So no one's going to be short of money. Each party will have millions of dollars that they're going to be pouring in the next 9 days. So those are the states where you really don't want to put televisions on, don't want to put radios on, don't want to answer the phone. Maybe not even pick up the mail, because it'll be nonstop, essentially, voter pulling to get you out to vote. Where does the Senate stand right now? I don't think any Republican-held seats, currently Republican-held seats, will turn over to the Democrats. The closest race among Republican-held seats is Kentucky, which was Jim Bunning, who, of course, pitched no-hitters in both leagues. Too many people can say that. But won his 2 Senate races by less than 1%. Now, Kentucky is a state that votes very Republican in presidential elections, much less so for Senate, governor races like that. Mitch McConnell had 5 times as much money as opponent in 2008 and won by only 6%. This year, Rand Paul defeated the establishment Republican candidate in the primary. There are people who think he's kind of a fringe candidate because of who his father is, who, in my opinion, is most certainly a fringe member of Congress. The son is, I think, a bit more mainstream. He's met with AIPAC. He's issued a position paper on the U.S.-Israel relationship, which might be a shock to some people, knowing where his father stands on issues related to Israel and foreign aid. And at this point, it looks like Paul is ahead by about 5%. I think the next batch of surveys that come out in that race will show that lead widening, because probably the least effective ad of the campaign season was run by his Democratic opponent based on some college fraternity prank where he supposedly tied up a woman and asked her to swear allegiance to the Aqua Buddha. And whether that is a true story or not, Paul jumped on it in the debate. And, the ad sort of accused him of being a hypocrite and not a real Christian because of his allegiance to the Aqua Buddha back 34 years ago. This was not, I think, an ad that worked. It suggests someone who was behind trying to throw a long pass, which when Jay Cutler does it is complete, but usually to someone with a different color uniform. And so I think Paul's going to hold on. The other Republican-held seats that were once thought competitive, New Hampshire, Judd Gregg's retiring, Kelly Ayotte, I think, is going to win decisively. In Ohio, Rob Portman, probably one of the smartest Republicans running for office this year, is trouncing the Democratic opposition. This is for Voinovich's seat. And in Missouri, which is an open seat, the Republican Blunt is leading the Democrat Carnahan, both of them with very well-known names in the state by 8, 9, 10 points. I think that race is pretty much locked up too. Florida was a race that for a while was considered very touch and go, but Marco Rubio has proven to be a very attractive candidate. He's a very strong Republican surge in the state this year. He's ahead at this point by 12 or 15 points. The Democrats have pulled their money. They're not even advertising for Kendrick Meek in any significant way anymore. Christ is probably going to finish second. The only way that race would become competitive is if the Democrat Meek dropped out. I think it's too late to do that, and his name would still appear about Democratic held seats? Democrats right now have 59, Republicans 41. To take control of the Senate, you have to win 10 seats. There are 3 Democratic held seats that everyone considers gone. Democrats have lost them. One is the open seat in North Dakota. The very popular governor, John Hoeven, is running about 35 points ahead of the Democrat. The second is Evan Baehr's seat in Indiana, with Dan Coates, a former senator, is well ahead. And the third is Arkansas, where incumbent Blanche Lincoln is down about 20 points to Congressman John Boozman. So those 3 take the Republicans to 44. Then you get 2 other seats where Republicans have held consistent leads throughout the cycle. One of them, that lead looks like it's still holding about the same, and that is Wisconsin, where Ron Johnson is about 7-8 points ahead of Russ Feingold. Wisconsin is a state normally very close in presidential elections. You have an alum of Wisconsin here, Mr. Hill. And the Badgers, another terrific victory yesterday, 2 in a row, Ohio State and then Iowa. Anyway, I think this is a pretty good one for the Republicans. The closest poll has been one very small sample poll that had Johnson only up 2. Every other poll's had him up 6, 7. Most people think that state looks pretty good for the Republicans. Then you get Pennsylvania. This was Arlen Specter's seat, who pulled the Benedict Arnold, switched over, became the 60th vote for the health care reform bill. Then got beat by Joe Sestak, who's CARE's favorite congressman, spoke at their dinner. A lot of other acts that would be considered minimally friendly to support for the U.S.-Israel relationship. And pro-Israel groups have been running ads against him consistently, and they're still running them. Pat Toomey, the Republican, had been running ahead by 7-8 points most of the cycle, and that lead has been cut in half in the last week. Most of the recent surveys have Toomey up 3 or 4 points. I think still likely he's going to win, but Sestak was a very fast closer against Arlen Specter. This is not done yet. It's made a lot of people nervous enough that more money is being diverted and sent to Pennsylvania in the last week of the campaign. During the Phillies Giants series in the Philadelphia market, there were ads about Joe Sestak on Israel. I don't know what percentage of people watching the game would find this ad particularly relevant. More concerned with the Phillies being down 3-1. But in any case, there are a lot of issue-specific ads being run in that campaign. Let's assume Republicans win Pennsylvania, win Wisconsin, that gets you 5, gets you up to 46. You then have 4 seats that everybody thinks are really teetering between one party and the other. Those include Nevada, Illinois, West Virginia, and I'm missing one. No, not Washington.
California?
Nope.
Washington?
No problem.
Oregon?
North Dakota. Second here. Colorado. Okay. Colorado looks the friendliest to the Republicans at the moment. There's one poll that shows the Republican Buck and the current senator who was appointed even. Most of the other polls have shown Ken Buck up by 2 to 3 points. This one is closer than Pennsylvania, so I'm sort of moving along the continuum from safe Republican to true toss-up. Colorado would be in 6th place among the most likely pickups right now. I still think the edge, maybe 2/3 chance that the Republicans pick up that seat. Colorado's a swing state, voted for Bush by 5%, went for Obama by 9%. But this year looks like it's turning back some. They had a governor's race. Everybody thought the Democrat was way out in front, and now an independent third-party candidate, Tom Tancredo, who's on a single issue on immigration, has moved really into